Alrighty. Today I want to welcome Dale, man. Thanks for coming on, brother.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Yeah, I know it's been a bit of a long journey getting you on here, mate. But here we are here today to tell the story. And look, I wanted to just sort of start off on how I met you and how this sort of interview come about, man.
Yep.
And because I think it's very important for those who are about to listen to this podcast is just how things work for the real reason, man.
Yeah, sure.
And, so after the interview with Dan Rogers, he's, straight away off here, he was like, mate, I got someone that you want to talk about. And he goes, I don't even know if he's going to be interested in wanting to talk about it, but I've got Dale, and that's where we met, eh?
He was straight on to me, mate. I thought it was like a spam message.
Yeah.
Because it was this big paragraph, and I was like, is this guy okay? But yeah, he was straight on to me, and I replied straight back and understood around what you guys are doing.
Yeah, wicked, bro. And then we were straight onto it as well, man.
Correct. Same day, I think.
Yeah.
Same day. Yeah.
It just happens, man. And look, mate, I'm a big believer in like the universe and how it puts things in front of you, man. Like the more you just relax, the more things are just gonna.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Cool. And then we had the chat on the phone, mate, and we spoke a little bit about you, and it was just so. Let me explain, man. Like normally I write all notes down, and not that I always go by the notes when I do these podcasts, but I always have some notes there of some topics I want to bring up.
Sure.
As I was sort of just prepping for this podcast, man, something just in me was just going, mate, just let this one fucking go, And so I've got a few little notes there, man. And because just with the short conversation that we had over the phone, mate, I just think there's going to be a lot to talk about, man, and a lot that for people out there they're going to listen, mate. I think it's going to fucking just get people tuned in on this, man. So tell us.
I guess there's a bit of a story to be told. I guess we've all got a story. I guess for me, with my story, I look at it more as a gift than a story. The struggles of certainly defined who I am as a human being. So I think first and foremost, the reason I'm coming onto this podcast is a couple of reasons. I would like to get more into public speaking, getting a bit more comfortable around that. Secondly, obviously for me, I just want to set the narrative here. I own a business. It's a multi-million-dollar business. I've got a lot of relationships with clients, employees. So I don't want to come across as, I think for me as a leader, more leaders need to be telling their stories and really just hammering down the stigma around mental health, because I think everyone on this earth goes through it at one point in time, whether that's depression, anxiety, any other conditions. I think it's something that does need to be spoken out about a bit more at the higher level, on the leadership level. My background's in the construction industry, my business construction industry, and I feel like leaders within that industry need to talk out more, just around their struggles, and really just remove the stigma.
Well, just quickly on that note, Dale, to be a good leader, or to even go through struggles, what makes you a good leader is to go through those struggles and what it is that you are coming out of that struggle. Yeah. And I believe like what the lessons we've learned in life, even for me to get to this point of running a podcast, I had to go through some fucking struggles.
Yeah.
If I hadn't gone through those struggles, I wouldn't be here today.
Yeah, 100%.
And I consider myself a leader as well, in what I'm doing and trying to put a voice onto it as well, man. So just want to congratulate you for doing it, man, because I also know what it's like running a big business, having a lot of people, a lot of staff. I did have a big business, and man, there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be watching this.
Probably so. Yeah, and I think it's I think a lot of people have probably got me wrong in my journey. I know that even this week I've had people in my professional career, point out, we thought that you was just on mum and dad's money, like running this business. And I think there's a lot of people that I've worked with over the years that I'm connected with that probably have the wrong impression, and this isn't around setting that record straight. It's certainly not. It's more around voicing what my journey is. And if some people can relate to that, and if some people can learn and have some comfort around that, then
so let's get stuck into your journey, brother.
Yeah. So the journey. Yeah. All right. So the journey. Well, the
Where
journey
do you start, man?
Yeah. I mean, I was born right. Yeah. There's a lot to you know, and I want to be very respectful to the people in the journey, along my journey, you know, like there's parents and family members that, you know, I have a lot of love and care for, but at the same time, it was quite rough growing up.
Cool.
As a child, you know, so for me, I want to be very respectful with that as well. But I guess, yeah, like started growing up as a child as any normal kid.
Yep.
Probably at the age of 5 or 6, mum and dad separated. Yep. Myself, my brother, we quickly learned that the dad that we thought was our dad wasn't our dad. So we had a sister there was 3 of us, yep. And we learned that he didn't want to see myself and my brother any longer. So probably from the age of 5 or 6, that was a bit of a, okay, cool.
Yeah,
looking back in
well, so he just completely come off, like went off the radar.
Yeah, correct. Like my sister would go and see him on a weekend, or my half sister would go and see him on a weekend. Yeah. And me and my brother would just stay at home with my mum and, you know, continue messing around and doing whatever else we was doing, you know. Yeah. So, you know, very quickly my mum got into another relationship. The relationship was quite an abusive relationship. So from a young age, you know, myself and my brother, we experienced, and more so my brother in that respect, you know, we experienced a lot of violence. Older brother. Yeah. So my brother, and we'll come to my brother in along the journey, but yeah, he was 18 months older than me. My sister, I think also 18 months younger than me. So very close. Us 3 were very close growing up as kids. So the relationship, it was quite an abusive relationship. You know, went from, you know, like I've seen, you know, stabbings and Christmas presents stolen and glasses smashed and then just really bad abuse. You know, some of the stuff I won't go into because, you know, it's quite personal. But, there was a lot of trauma growing up you know, when my mum and this guy was together. Sure. You know, and you know, kudos to some other family members. They'd come in and intervene and it'd get physical, you know, which was also probably a little bit traumatic to see, but it was very rocky growing up from probably the age of 5 to 10. That was probably the period that we went through with that abusive trauma, you know, with my mum and her husband at the time. Yeah.
And at that time, mate, like, fuck, man, I'm relating to this massively as I speak. So it's, you know, I'm going to allow you to tell your story, bro. But it's crazy how that trauma, that childhood trauma, how it sticks with you, fucking as the man you are today, man.
Yeah, I've done, and I think you would probably relate as well, Dave. Is it takes a long time for you actually to relate back to it and go, oh,
what the fuck was going on? Yeah. I know, man. Yeah, it's like, and it's not until you get older. I look back all the time and just go, what the fuck? Yeah. At the time, it was so normal. Yeah. Because you don't know anything fucking else.
Correct. You know, growing up as a kid, mate, you don't know that it's not right until you don't know it's not right.
That's it. Yeah, you don't know until you know.
Correct. Yeah, so the journey went on in the childhood, and probably from the age of maybe 10, 11, you know, my mum separated with this other guy. She got in a new relationship. The guy was a lot younger. He was, I think, 18 at the time, the guy. You know, so my brother was 13. I would have been 11, 12. So it was a very close age gap. Again, there wasn't too much trauma around that stuff, but it was, it was a little bit unsettling, obviously going to school and X, Y, Z, and, you know, your mum's dating. Okay, cool. Yeah. You know, so this guy just left school and he's dating my mum, and it's like, you know, okay.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
You know, so, but then look, and then, you know, the childhood went on, and probably from the age of 13 in school, you know, I was, my brother was very, what's the right words to put it? He was a trouble causer, for better terms, right? Yeah. He would always cause trouble. He was a nightmare, you know. So he would always end up having fights at school, and that eventually caught on to me. So I ended up getting bullied by a couple of guys from his year. Yep. You know, and that went on for probably 6 to 12 months, maybe, and that was quite traumatic for the whole family, because these guys, they were the well-known people in my town. You know, they would come round to the house and, you know, they'd be ramming on the door asking for my brother to come outside. My mum would be involved. Yeah. The 18-year-old husband would be involved, and it was like, fucking hell, this is, you know. I remember, you know, and this is part of my journey. I remember one point, you know, I was walking from home and getting bullied. It would get physical as well. And there was just one day where I don't know what it was, even to this day, I don't know what it was, but something just switched in me. And I remember this guy was ramming on the door, and something just switched. And I must have been 13, 14 at the time. And I just ran down the stairs, ran after him, got hold of him and just gave it to him. And you know, from there, I mean, my life from there turned into quite an aggressive. I was quite an aggressive guy from probably the age of 14 to maybe 21.
Yeah, right.
You know, and I was in and out of trouble with the police, which I'll also come to. So the bullying stopped eventually. So after that piece, it was going.
Always does, man, when they get a flogging.
Yeah, correct, mate. It was, which was quite a good feeling for me. You know, it was like, fuck yeah, I know how to stop these guys now. So, childhood went on. There was lots more trauma. You know, my brother continued causing trouble. There was again another family from my hometown that came in. Let me rewind. My mum found another partner, so she broke up with this 18-year-old guy. They had two kids together, two great brothers, also additional brothers that I've got now. So she broke up with this 18.
How old was your mum at this time, man? Roughly.
38 maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. 35, 38 maybe. Yeah. So she broke up with this guy and she met a guy online, I believe, and moved 4 hours, or she went down 4 hours away from where we was living to stay with this guy. And she ultimately left myself and my brother in this house that we was living in on our own. My brother being my brother, causing trouble. One day, you know, one of the families, for better terms, literally kicked the door in. Myself and my brother was at home, and they. I want to use this word very loosely, but it's the only phrase that I can use. But they slit his throat. It wasn't as bad as it sounds.
Yeah.
And I remember, you know, I was just sat upstairs and I just felt paralyzed by it. There was nothing I could do. All this trauma was downstairs, and I wanted to help my brother. And there was a lot of guilt that I had for years after that. Which
was this because you went into shock and
I just felt scared. Like I was probably 16 at this stage, you know. And I think, you know, there was a lot of guilt around. You know, I'd been and when I've processed it later in my 20s, it was the reason for the guilt was I was this guy at 16 that thought he was tough, that was out there fighting with people every weekend. But then when actually the real need was needed to help my brother, I wasn't able to. Yeah. But I mean, that's been processed. These guys were adults that were broken into the house and done this to my brother. Yeah. Again, my brother made a full recovery, but it was, it was pretty traumatic, you know.
It's that fight or flight thing that happens really quickly, wasn't it, man?
Correct.
And for something so fucking dramatic to happen to a 16-year-old man is fucking, like even if you fought or flight, I mean, one or the other fucking is just as normal.
Same outcome, right?
Exactly
like
right.
Yeah. So it was that was, you know, and all these little events, or you know, these little events, they all added up over the years, you know, and it was, you know, then obviously alcohol started at the age of 17, 18, and you know, I was in with friends, and we'd always go out into my town centre, and you know, every weekend without fail, we would be fighting every weekend. And some weekends, and this isn't something that I'm proud of, but it's the lessons that I learned from this truly stick with me today. You know, there's a good friend of mine. We would go out every weekend and we'd look at our watch and we'd go, you know, it's 2 a.m. We're pissed, you know. Should we have a fight? Yeah, let's go and cause a fight, you know. And we was really reckless at, you know, the age of, again, 18 to 20 going out, you know. And it was every weekend we'd go out, we'd end up in trouble, you know. 9 times out of 10, the police weren't involved, but there was many occasions where they were. So, you know, I mean, I remember when I moved to Australia, I had to get my criminal record check, and it was a good 2 or 3 pages long of violence, you know. Again, not something that I'm proud of, and certainly don't condone violence.
It's part of the story, brother.
It's part of the story, and it's definitely shaped who I am as a person. You know, and I learned some crucial lessons on how to not be violent, you know. And how
just quickly on that note, Dale, like, I mean, you know, just want to touch on what we're talking about. Fuck, man, I've got a 3-page list as well, mate, of shit that I'm not fucking proud of. And I'm sure the next person can fucking do it. And it's not even about who's done what and how bad it is or anything like that, because that ain't it. I mean, that's fucking judgment. Yeah. And but the stories that we should all be telling is what we've learnt from that as you know, grown males now, and what values they've added to our life and change it. And if you're not at that point, for those that ain't listening, fucking turn those bad moments that you're going through, or you have been through, or those ones that you're fucking embarrassed about, and start trying to put them into some positive.
Yeah, I think it's just taking accountability, right? Like it's taking accountability of just, you know, who you are and your actions, you know. And I think 100%. I had to do that from a very young age. You know, it was either I take accountability or I go to prison, you know. And yeah, obviously I took accountability. And you're right, Dave. I mean, it's, you know, there's people out there that are struggling with that violence piece or anger or aggression. Like it's, you know, and there was one thing that actually that resonated with me really hard is part of me going to court and getting convicted and whatnot was I had to go on this aggression. I can't remember the correct terminology, but it was an aggression course. And one of the videos they showed in this course was basically the one punch kill. We all know around them in Perth, you know, and that really, from the age of 20, resonated with me. There was a story in the UK where, again, just someone was punched once and their life ended, you know, and for me, that scared the shit out of me, you know.
Because that there is fucking life-changing.
Correct. That, that destroys lives, you know, and I think for me, that changed the course of my life, watching that one video, you know. So I think that, that really scared me because also it wasn't around me just punching someone. It was also, what if someone punches me and that's what happens to me, you know? So
that's awesome that woke you up like that, man. And you know, let's face it, mate, us males, we need to learn the hard way. Correct. Unfortunately, I mean, I've got an 8-year-old son. And I want to mentor him as much as I possibly can and lead him down the right fucking path and everything else. And he's a good kid and he does listen and respect and trust me as well. So, you know, we'll go a long way. But there's also that element, man, where he's going to be like his old man and he needs to learn the fucking hard way as well. Yeah. And so, good on you, bro.
But I think that's where you, as a human, Dave, what you're doing here, amazing work. And I think you'll learn a lot for everyone's journey. Yeah. And then that allows you to grow, your son to grow. 100%. And I think that's, kudos to you, mate, for putting this podcast on. Yeah, good.
Just going back to, so I'm just trying to pick up now where you're at, because one thing I've learned in my journey, bro, is that a lot of our shit that we're going through, and we're only just getting to your adult life now.
Of course, yeah.
And this is where all the bullshit really fucking starts, you know. It really is, man, you know. And it's purely because all our pain, our suffering, and fucking mental health all comes from the childhood trauma, man.
Yeah, correct.
And that's a tip for those that are trying to work it out. If you got, you know, you really got to go back and deal with the fucking shit that's
100%. When you're a kid. I can't agree with that anymore. Like it's, my journey is definitely, I've had to deal with a lot of shit in my adult life. But so if I'll pick up from the childhood. So obviously, you know, my brother, I rely, you know, and a lot of, I think the trauma with my story refers back to my brother. So again, just he was a reckless trouble causer. You know, he was suffering for many years with mental health. We didn't quite know what it was, but he was constantly self-harming. I remember the first time he self-harmed was probably the age of 13. Myself and him was on a field playing football, or I can't remember what it was, and he decided to slit his wrist on some barbed wire for whatever reason. No idea to me. So for me, from a very early age, it was kind of like, you know, and that carried on all the way through his life, where this suicide and mental health struggles really bedded in for him.
Yeah, right.
So, but just back to my story. So obviously, you know, at the age of 15, I probably missed this out. I ended up getting kicked out of school. And this part of my life probably is one of the most parts I'm grateful for my professional career. So I got kicked out of school. 15, you know, education wasn't for me. It still isn't for me. You know, so got kicked out of school, went to work with my uncles. One of them was a gyp rocker, another one was a tiler. Learned a lot there. Eventually got a job with a guy called Dean. So this guy really did change my perspective on life and my viewpoint from a professional point of view. So I remember we was living on what we call in the UK council estates, similar to Home West here. So government funded housing, and he would come and and I started working with Dean as a labourer, and he'd come and pick me up in this Porsche and on the council estate, and everyone's looking at the car, and I'm like, what the fuck's going on here? From a very young age of 15, 16, you know, I was going to his house. He was building his house, and I was thinking, I like that. You know, I want that. And there was no real role models for us as kids growing up. You know, like it was growing up on the council estate. You know, father figures in and out. You know, like there was no real structure around, what we want to be. So Dean changed the course of my life in the respect of going, shit, I wanted the Porsche and I want the house. So from a professional point of view, from a very young age, I was chasing that. I've always been probably leading into my business life a little bit. I've always been, and I hate the word entrepreneurial, but quite entrepreneurial. I know at the age of 15, I was selling cracked Windows XP. I don't know if you remember Windows XP, the cracked versions on PayPal, so £300 each, and then selling them as genuine versions, and PayPal eventually locked me down. But it was I've always been able to look at, okay, where's an opportunity? That wasn't a good opportunity, by the way. But
I totally get it, man. It's funny. I'm just going to relate again to your story. I wouldn't ever have created my business without the fucking past that I had, man.
Yeah.
I think what it comes from is that you've got no fear.
Yeah.
You don't give a fuck. You've got nothing to lose.
Correct.
And so you're going to make something of yourself.
Correct,
because you've got the opportunity. And the second one was, man, again, that you don't know until you know scenario. When you've been shown or something's revealed to you that this guy's got a Porsche, this guy's got a business, fuck, I can do that.
Correct.
If you never have seen that, you wouldn't have never known you could do that. You're always going to be a subject to your fucking environment.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I feel like my, and that's why I call my story my gift, because it's, I feel like I've been very fortunate in my life around, I think a lot of people can look at this journey and go, it's kind of a bad road. But for me, I go, I wouldn't change it because it's for me the stuff that I feel like I've been very fortunate, But so back to the story, kicked out of school, working with Dean, got into IT. My brother was still my brother. I ended up moving to Australia at the age of 21.
Yep.
So 12 years ago. I'm just making sure I don't miss anything out of this story that was there was relevant, So from the age of 18 to 20, violent, trouble with the police. Met a girl in the UK. Her family emigrated to Australia. We came as well in 2007. I was working in KFC up in Clarkson. So no qualifications, obviously kicked out of school.
Yep.
I think I lasted here 2 months, and I said to my partner at the time, I'm going back. I'm going to get an education, and I did. And I went to college and I got my electrical apprenticeship. Might I say I had to go to the next college in the next town because I got kicked out of that college in the previous age, so I had to go to a different college. Bit of a fucking nightmare. But ended up doing my electrical apprenticeship. So that was my education piece, and then was able to move to Australia in 2010 with that education.
Yep. And what was the main reason for that, man? Like, obviously you want a qualification. I get all that, but there must have been some sort of, you're after something at this stage.
Yeah, I feel like it was the gateway, right? Yeah. Like it was either stay at KFC in Clarkson and maybe become a manager or something, or go back, get an education, and that's a gateway to growth. Yeah. And look, I don't know. It's a really good question because I actually don't know what was the reason behind it. I think it was just the drive of, and I'd finished working with Dean at this stage, obviously. I think it was the drive around, well, I still want the Porsche, and to this day, I still want the fucking Porsche, that's the goal, Yeah. So for me, I don't know what it was, mate, to be honest with you, that dragged me back.
Yeah. Sometimes we don't know what it is, man.
No.
Yeah, it's our fucking subconscious mind fucking directing us. And I think the more we just allow that to happen, man. Yeah. Rather than control it. But okay, carry on.
So I'll skip a few years ahead. So obviously, because again, when I moved to Australia, worked as an electrician for 6 months, then ended up working for a big corporate as an estimator. Obviously there was all the stuff around with my brother that was continuously happening. So, we was talking, sometimes not for 6 months, sometimes every day, sometimes every week. So the communication was very lumpy, and it's always been like that with my whole family. There's never been a real stable relationship where we're picking up the phone every Sunday, we're Zooming or Skyping back in them days. It's always been, we can go 6 months without talking, or a year. There's one point where I went, I think 6 or 7 years without talking to my mum.
Yeah, right.
So luckily we've got the relationship back on track now. But yeah, so my family's never been, there's never been really structure around communication, and back to that point with my mum, like I feel proud that I've been able to put my stuff aside and really just look at it from her point of view, because it's very easy for me to sit there and say, well, you put us through this as kids and this and this and this and this, but she was also in the trauma side of things as well.
Fucking oath, man.
You know,
that's why I asked her age before as well, man. Like, you know, and if my mum was to come alive today, you know, as much as I was very angry about what she did I tell you? So my mum, I found my mum dead through suicide when I was 14.
Yeah, and I'm so sorry.
Yeah, all good, man. But it's I was very angry for a long time.
Yeah.
But you know, if I did have the opportunity today, yeah, it's very much you got to understand it from them, man. I mean, they don't intentionally.
Yeah,
you know, they were always doing their best at the time.
Correct, man. And I think that's something that I've had to learn. So I've done a lot of counselling over the years, and exactly that. They didn't know either. They were figuring this shit out as well at the same time, man. Right? So very proud that I've got that relationship with my mum now. It's not you know, it's not the relationship that I would love to have, as in I would like more from it, but it's certainly enough, you know. And you know, I see that the value that she gets out of it and I get out of it, and I think
that's good to hear.
Credit to us both.
Yeah, fucking oath.
So obviously the communication with my brother was on and off throughout these few years. You know, he was a plumber back in the UK. He was in and out of mental health problems. And I think the story really begins to heat up probably 2018, 2019. You know, I'm fully into my business at this stage. I'm into a long-term relationship. And my brother starts suffering with some mental health challenges, you know, and, you know, I'm trying to manage my business. I'm trying to manage my relationship. My brother's sending me photos of awful, you know, self-harm things. And, you know, sitting on the other side of the world, you feel relatively helpless, you know. And that went on for probably 6 months, I would say, you know, at that stage. And he kind of quieted down.
Sorry to interrupt, mate. Did you feel like he's trying to reach out in his way? Or like, but we can get into that after this part of this.
Yeah, I don't know. Like, I feel, in retrospect, probably, I feel like it probably was a reach out, you know. And I would always communicate and respond, you know. I would never leave him be, you know. I'd always do what I can try and do from the other side of the world. You know, I think from him as well, back in the UK, he was very lonely in way of family, you know, like my family ultimately disowned him, essentially, you know, because he was in trouble with the police. He'd been to prison. It was drugs, drink, you know, you name it. He was that guy, you know. So, but at the same time, there was a very caring and loving side of him that wanted to be successful. You know, he was a very hard worker, very creative. When he was in his good headspace, but when he was in his bad headspace, you don't want to be around him because it was just reckless, you know. And you know, I mean, you know, there's probably a huge amount of the story that I've missed out when I lived in the UK. You know, like I would go around to his apartment, and you know, there'd be blood up the stairway, and there's blood everywhere, and he's sat there, and you know, this one occasion in his apartment is completely, like, I'm talking, there's nothing survived, everything is smashed. Yeah. And he's just sat there punching a drawer full of broken glass. You know, his knuckles are all like mangled, and it was very upsetting to see. You know, obviously your brother. You know, you've grown up with him, and me and him was always like this. You know, so and there was a lot of experience like that, which I probably haven't jumped into, but hopefully that gives you a bit of understanding around.
Yeah.
So fast forward back to 2020. Obviously, we had COVID lockdown, or COVID came around. My nan passed away of cancer in March, and I think that affected my brother somewhat. Even though we wasn't close to our grandparents, but it affected my brother. And I don't know if it was the mentality of I'll just grab onto it for something to be sad about, or whether it was actually sad around it. So 2020 March passed, and I'll fast forward to. Probably from March to October, there was, again, the increase of self-harm pictures, you know, distress calls. It'd ring me drunk, drugged, everything, you know, like just...
It's ramped right up.
Right up. And I think it was in May. So in May, he got put into a mental institute. So, which all of the family come back together at this stage, and everyone was like, right, well, it's the best place for him. You know, we said, right, when he comes out, we're going to get him on track. We'll get him a new place to live. We'll buy him whatever he needs to do. You know, everyone puts money in, and everyone was good with that. And I was thinking, okay, good. I'm not the one that's good, because for me, for many years, Dave, I was the guy that had to check in on him. I was the guy to check in and go, mate, how are you, Chris? How are you? What's going on? What do you need? But for me, I felt a bit of relief because it was everyone was chipping in. Everyone was doing their part.
Felt like you had some support with it.
I had some support, correct, 100%. So, but very quickly learned that as soon as he was released, probably after 3 weeks, it was crickets. It was everyone had liked to say the right thing. Yeah, we're going to do this. We'll do this. We'll do this. And as soon as he was released, where is everyone? Everyone's gone. So, obviously for me, I took that all on board. I paid for my brother to get a new place. Yeah. Obviously, I was doing what I could from Australia, but paid for him to get a new place, sent him some money, checking in with him every day. He was on medications at this stage, and everything seemed to be working okay. And this was May.
How long was he in there for?
He was in there for about 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Yeah.
It was enough to, I guess, well, you wouldn't call semi-sober. He was, The system,
so the problem is with my brother, very manipulative and very smart, So, when he was sat in front of the system thought he was okay, and he wasn't struggling, so he was very manipulative.
I think that we can all do that in some way, mate.
100% agree.
And I guess this is about mental health, mate. We can all pretend we're fucking okay.
Correct. Yeah.
It was even just, I won't go off topic, but like it comes up a lot in these podcasts, like how people, like we're very, very, very good at fucking.
Yeah. I think it's a good point, right? I mean, is that ego driven, or like are we deflecting away from what's real inside of us by manipulating people around us?
Well, we're like with the podcast with Scotty Cummings, he talked about it like from a footy aspect or a professional sportsman sort of part. And, like his generation was like, there is no mental health. Shut the fuck up. Yeah. You've got the best job in the world. Pull your fucking head in. Yeah. Harden the fuck up, more or less, Yeah. So I think it's a generational thing. I think like we're lucky enough now that I still only think we're at the fucking, there's a long way to go.
A long way.
But we're at least at a part of, and even if we reflect on our journeys of mental health and self-therapy and things like that, the real key to the start of it all is communication. And you said it before, being vulnerable to what the fuck's going on, being open and allowing that shit to be a real thing.
Yeah, and I think that's and that's one of the reasons why I wanted to come on, is that there's nothing wrong as a leader in any industry being vulnerable, and I know that I've sat in front of my team at work, a couple of years ago, and I was very vulnerable, and to the point where, I was physically upset, but and for me, I'm not ashamed of that. Like, I think that's something, it's for me, everyone goes, it's strength, and I'm not ashamed of it, because we're all human, and we've got to allow ourselves to be vulnerable in order to succeed in life, whether that's personally, professionally.
That's why I called this fucking real, man. And it's because I think the more real you come, the more respect you get. Yeah. And the further you get, if it's being fucking real with yourself or fucking real with others or in your workplace. Yeah. And obviously you've got to draw the line somewhere. I mean, of course. You can't be just reckless about it. But I think the point what we're trying to make is being totally open and even being a business owner, and I don't know how many staff you got, but I'm sure you've definitely got enough that where they need someone to look up to and to drive them. And if you're being honest and open about who you are, the more.
Mate, I agree. It's the buy-in that, and the buy-in that, I'm not a great leader. Like, I'm open to admit that I'm not a great leader. That aggressive streak in me still lies, and I don't mean aggressive in physical aggressive, but the aggression around the way I want stuff done and how I want it done and when I want it done. I'm very direct as a human, in all aspects of my life. So I know I'm not a great leader, but what I am is I'm very happy to be vulnerable and show people who I am.
Yeah, but that's leadership in itself, though, man. People that look at you and see it.
Yeah, but I mean, it's the there's that piece of the leadership, and I feel like it has done our business really well in the respect of just showing people that it's not about money and it's not about status. It's around having a bit of fun, and I think being putting myself in that vulnerable place has allowed us to grow as an organisation. And look, I would definitely urge more leaders to allow themselves to be vulnerable, because I just feel there's still that ego piece with a lot of leaders, around. Well, I'm not showing my vulnerability because it's weakness, and I think we all know in this room it's not.
That word ego, man. Like I didn't even know really what it fucking meant about 4 years ago. But learning more and more about the actual ego word, it's fucked.
Yeah. It's
You
not
know?
good.
Yeah. And it's all ourself, man. It's our own fucking.
Correct.
It's what I call the devil.
Yeah. 100%.
You know what I mean? Like when people talk about the devil and living in hell, well, it's living in ego.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how I sort of see it. And yeah.
No, I mean, it's a good. I mean, it is evil, right? Ego is evil, and I think it's
never wants the best for you.
Nah, and I think to have that emotional intelligence to pull yourself out of that ego status sometimes. I think it's and look, I think ego is good to a certain degree, but a small dosage of it.
Yeah.
But I agree. I like that. I like the fact that it is the devil. Yeah.
And we've all got it too, man. I don't give a fuck how. Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't give a fuck who you are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everyone's got their own ego,
Absolutely.
And sometimes it's ego that drives you to do things as well.
Yeah.
Like you said, man. And yeah.
So I guess just back to the story, Dave. Like so May, my brother came out of rehab, for better terms, let's call it.
Yep.
Bit too soon. I'll fast forward to October 2020. So it was a nice day. I just bought a quad. I was out up in the north with some friends. I was down on my quad. It was one of them days where it was nice and warm. There was no wind. I remember coming home. I was dating some girl at the time. She'd come over. And she'd end up going home at maybe 10, 11 o'clock in the evening.
Yeah.
Went to bed as any other normal night. And then I remember something woke me up at maybe 1:30. 1:30, it's about 1:30, 1:30. And I woke up and looked at my phone for whatever reason. And I had all these missed calls, like from people I've not spoken to for like 20 years, people I'd gone to school with, and uncles and sister and my mum. And in fact, I don't think my mum, but there was just so much family. There was so much missed calls and messages. Dale, call me, it's urgent. It's about your brother. And I was thinking, fuck, what is this? So I was sit up on my bed. I'm going through the messages, and one guy, and this message sticks in my head. This one guy, his message, it still sticks in my head. And the message read, Dale, call me, it's urgently. It's your brother. He's killed himself by hanging himself. And I remember I was just like, fuck. Like, fuck. Like, what? So I ring the guy and I'm like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, and I remember, I was pretty aggressive around it. It was tough. And then, that journey went on.
That eerie fucking moment, and even you talking about it now, because I can relate to it, bro. It's such a fucking cold fucking moment, bro.
Yeah, it was really rough. It was a really rough moment, mate. Yeah, it was a big smack in the face, because I remember speaking to my brother on the Friday, and this was a Sunday that this happened. And I remember speaking to my brother on the Friday, and even the communications with him, it was positive. It was, yeah, mate, I'm turning the corner. I'm not drinking anymore. I haven't touched drugs for 3 weeks. And one
dissuaded you.
Yeah, mate, manipulation again. It was just, and I was on the phone to him, and it was just, in fact, sorry, that was the Sunday. Sorry. The Friday, I had a call with him, and he was very distressed. He was upset. I know my sister lives with this regret, but he rang and asked for my sister's number. He goes, he got Sophie's number. I want to speak to her. And I'm like, you all good? He goes, yeah. He was very upset. He was drunk and whatever else. And anyway, we ended the call after about half an hour, and I give him my sister's number, and he tried calling her, and she never picked up or never returned the call. So, and she
did she see it?
She saw it. Yeah. So she knows that. She knows that she missed one of the last opportunities to speak to him. Which must be very hard. But again,
so let's just talk about that, bro. Like, because what year was this?
2020.
2020.
Yeah.
So it's still pretty fucking raw.
Yeah, it's pretty fresh still. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, look, my mum, I don't think it ever goes away. Yeah. You just learn to deal with it better, man.
Yeah.
And there's a few things that I want to speak about. One is sort of like, fuck. It's like they can go and do it. He's at rest now.
Yeah. Correct.
And you can take some sort of comfort in that in yourself. You can move on and things like that. I mean, but the fucking thing you got to live with is the fact that he's left you here with all these, could I have done that? Could I have done that?
Yeah.
Could I have done that?
Yeah.
Should I pick
But
up
I think Dave, the thing that I've done very well is I feel like I've processed it very well.
Cool.
And I have a lot of comfort in one of the last messages my brother sent me, which was, it was along the lines of, hey, in the UK, there's an expression called "our kid," right? Hey, our kid, how are you going? You know, and there's and one of the last messages my brother sent me, which was on the Sunday, was, "Hey, our kid, really appreciate everything you've done for me. Time to turn the corner," you know. And I take a lot of comfort in that, you know, because I know certainly for the last 6 months of his life, I was, it affected me heavily, which I think we'll go into around the impacts that my whole life's had on me mentally. But it affected me. The last 6 months of his life was really hard for me. You know, I had my business. I had my business I was trying to run. I had a failing relationship, which was just an absolute fucking mess because of all of this. And then I obviously had my brother to deal with. You know, so 2020 was, and then COVID, the stresses of that. You know, like it was a rough fucking year, man. But anyway, so I went back. What
were you doing in that time? I mean, you're still here to live this story, man. And so, I mean, fuck, that's rough. Again, I can relate to it, right? This is the thing, mate. I'm fucking hearing you, man. It's like my heart's just coming out on the table as well at the same time. But it's like, fuck, because you can get lost in it all, bro.
Yeah, and I did. And I did for 6 months. So I, I went back to the UK. I told everyone, I said, no one's touching his fucking stuff. I rang all my family. I said, do not go into his place. You don't fucking deserve it. I was very angry, you know, from people that could have helped him that didn't. I was like, no one fucking touch his stuff. And respect to my family members, no one did. They respected my wishes on that. So I went back to the UK, cleaned all his stuff up, you know, and got rid of what he had left. You know, I didn't stay for the funeral because, again, back in the UK, they were, if you was living, they had these pods. So if you was one family member, you would have to sit together. Another family member, I was there on my own. I wasn't part of any family. So I would have had to sit on my own. And I thought, well, I don't want to be sitting with these people that could have helped him that didn't. So, you know, I went and said my piece to my brother in the chapel. And I got the fuck out of there. And I come back to Australia and I was in quarantine for 2 weeks, obviously coming back. So I ended up watching the funeral on the digital, on the laptop. Back in the day, you could only have one bottle of wine a day. So I saved up fucking about 4 bottles of wine, mate, for that day, and I had a big party in the hotel room that night. You know,
spoke to your brother a few times.
100%, mate. Played his favourite songs, and really had this portable speaker, and it was on max. So I don't know what the next door neighbours would have been thinking, mate, in the hotel. But so then came out of quarantine, and the next 6 months was quite destructive.
I wonder if they're 2 weeks in quarantine and you doing all that shit, man. Like my first impression of it would have been, fuck, that would have been hard. But we done a podcast last week, and it was about like relationship with self. And a lot of the stuff that was coming up was just being alone. And having no distractions. And really dealing with what the fuck is going on. And I'm just
look, I was let's just call it for better terms, I was heavily sedated for the whole 2 weeks. So it was the doctors, I couldn't sleep. So the doctors give me some sleeping tablets, which, mate, they would knock me out for 12 hours. And when I was awake, I was almost like a zombie anyway. You know? So for me, I probably, I think that was probably a lucky thing that I did. That was very heavily sedated.
Yeah, because I mean, the other side of what I was saying is it could be very dangerous. Correct. As well, going 100%. Through what you've been through. And look, and I've been through them thoughts, like, again, just coming into my journey a bit, which, you know, like in that hotel room, and, you know, like this is a very personal comment, and I don't think I've ever spoken about this before, but it was when I was in that hotel room, there was a moment where I thought, like, hanging yourself, really? And I remember vividly, like, I was like, not to do it, but I was like, how does it feel? I remember putting a belt around my neck and putting just a little bit of tension on, and I was like, nah. Have you ever been suicidal?
Look, my thought process has always been the closest I've been to suicidal is I couldn't give a shit if that bus hits me today. You know, and the last 12 months they've progressed. That thought process has progressively got worse until I've fixed the problem, which we'll come into. But like it's been, I've always felt with my brother being there, I've always had to be that carer. So I've never been able to probably step away and think of suicide. But for me, no. Like I don't think that I haven't got the balls to do it. You know, and I think that's what it comes down to.
Pretty fucking ballsy, eh?
It's a pretty ballsy move, mate. Like I remember doing this thing in the hotel, and I was like, nah. Like, fuck this. This fucking hurts. Nah.
I've been there a few times, man, and like not to the point where I've done it, but like definitely fucking at rock bottom, mate. Right. And and it's fucking scary, bro.
Yeah.
It's scary because it's not, you don't think about what's going to hurt, what's not, and you don't think who's going to find you. You don't think anything. You just fucking want out.
And what was the driving factor of not doing it for you?
My kids. For some reason, and you talk about drive and entrepreneur and all that. Like I've always just had this drive.
Yeah.
Some people say you're fucking lucky, David. No. A lot of people will say, there's no such thing as luck. The one, and I sort of agree with that to some point, but I am fucking lucky that I've just had this drive to fucking know, to just push a little bit more, to find a fucking reason, to fucking, and in those times, and that's what I call luck. And I think that's what got me. I'm just lucky enough that I've thought about my fucking kids.
Yeah.
Or I just knew just get the fuck through today,
And what, and how close was you?
I've been at the age of 15 after losing my mum. I've been on a stool with a surfboard leash around my neck in the garage.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And sorry, at that stage I had no kids, man. It was my sister's. I also had the responsibility of looking after. Well, before my mum died, my mum said if anything happens to me, I know it's going to be okay because they've got you, Dave.
Yeah.
So I've held that on my. So
it's a big weight to.
Oh, massive, man, massive. Especially when you're out on the fucking streets and got nothing.
Yeah.
And the protection, and even growing up now with my sisters, of some of the shit my sisters have been through, man. And I was their only provider and protector.
Yeah.
And I'm only fucking 15, 16 years old. And now we're looking back at it. And I held so much guilt because there's been things that have happened to them that I fucking couldn't do anything about.
And what was your mechanism to process all that? Like, how have you got past all of that? Because I mean, that's pretty, and sorry to switch sides.
No, it's good.
How, like, what's the, what's your strategies to deal with that stuff? Because that's pretty heavy.
Well, man, I was sedated with fucking alcohol and drugs a lot of the time. But I've just, again, lucky enough to be able to always know these, always wanted to better myself. I knew and again, a little bit like you with the Porsche and your mate, I did see things in my life at an early age to know that there was always better.
Yeah.
And I guess I was always striving for that, man.
Yeah.
Always had that in the back of my head. But even as of, say, a few years back when I lost my company through bankruptcy and going through bankruptcy and then losing my family, like my ex-partner and shit like that, again, getting heavily involved with drugs and alcohol and, and I was and if not, that was probably my fucking darkest times, man, even after losing my mum.
Yeah,
and, but that was my opportunity to go, why is this happening, Dave?
Yeah. And do you feel that you'll never go back to them times?
Oh, it's always hard to say no, bro.
Yeah.
I don't ever say never, but it's certainly the journey I'm on now, man. Is I'd say no. Yeah.
Good.
I mean, I'd like to say no, but it really is hard, man. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, so like, and this is the thing with life. We don't know what's around the corner.
Yeah, no, correct.
I mean, and there's some things I could bring up that could happen, and if they happen,
it's going to be dark.
I could definitely go back to this fucking dark place again, and particularly around my kids, and so. But in saying that, the journey for me and the things I've learned have given me even more drive, man.
Yeah,
and more, and even to now to want to share all these stories for those that are listening.
Yeah.
To fucking help them, man.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
absolutely.
And that's So, and I guess that's a little bit of like me wanting to be there for my sisters. Then it was to be there for my kids.
Yeah.
And that's what's got me to where I am today. And then I think now is just there's this passion of fucking wanting to give even more to those I don't even know really. But
no, that's good. And I think that's all again through your experiences, right? And a bit of purpose on.
I've never been asked these questions on my
sorry. Sorry. No, I think I find it intriguing just to understand how different people deal with these issues, because I think that's your story. I think you and I have got very similar stories. And
sorry. Like, and also with that, man, I also got a lot of help.
Yeah.
I put my hand up, man.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm fucking struggling. I've done it with my friends, my family. And a lot of my friends and family saw me struggling. Yeah. And so, but I also got help. I had a life coach.
Yeah.
And went to men's groups.
Yeah.
I'd done everything and then fitness and training and fucking
big part, hey?
Yeah, definitely, man. Yeah. And I think, again, like what we say is just, I think I got to the point where I'm like, fuck off, man. I'm going to put my fucking hand up.
Yeah.
I need to do something.
Yeah, and there's no shame in that, right?
Not at all.
There's definitely no shame in that.
And those who have shame in that, they can fuck off.
Yeah.
And
they could go and read some fucking books, right?
Well, then they're going to learn a few things off you. In the future.
Correct. So I guess just to wrap up maybe, or conclude that story, Dave.
Yep.
So I guess I can't remember where I quite got to.
Well, obviously you went back. You left the funeral.
Went there, come out of quarantine. It was a very destructive. 6 months. So for me, probably the same as the majority of young Australian English guys. Before my brother passed away, the weekends, every now and again, it'd be recreational drugs. Since my brother passed away to this day, never touched drugs again. I never will. Which is something which was a big driver for me. But within the 6 months after he passed away, very destructive. Yeah, like pulled away from my business, friends pulled away from, alcohol consumption went up. And maybe it wasn't even 6 months, maybe it was 4 months. And in 2021 came, and I remember New Year's Eve 2020, I got absolutely blinded. And I had a penthouse up in the Ritz-Carlton, the hotel.
Yep.
But so there was apartments up there, and I leased one out in I can't remember. But anyway, there was and I was on my own, and I thought, do you know what? Tomorrow, this fucking stops. And this was maybe 3 months, sorry, not even 4 or 6. And I thought, I'm going to fucking drink the rest of this alcohol. Tomorrow, it fucking stops. And it kind of stopped. Yeah. And then February came and it really fucking stopped. So I stopped drinking and really went clean for about 300 days. I didn't touch alcohol at all. Right. But just, I guess, back to the whole...
So just did something happen at that stage? Were you just like being that reckless? You were sort of like, fucking something's going to stop.
I just saw it. Like I saw it, man. I'm in this fucking sub-penthouse in the Ritz-Carlton. They've got these big fuck off open windows, like the size of this wall almost. And I'm thinking, I'm drinking and I'm thinking, fuck, I could easily jump out of this. And that's me gone. And I've just felt my business was failing at this stage, because I wasn't in it. I was out drinking and I was depressed at the time. I didn't want to be around people. And for me, it took that 3 months for me to go, nah, like we're going down the wrong path here. So I come across this journey
because it's all those. Sorry to interrupt, mate, but it's all those substances at the time. Yeah, it's a good filler.
Yeah,
and but fuck the aftermath of it.
Yeah, there's one outcome, mate, right? And it's just fucking destruction. Yeah. Like that's the only outcome. Yeah. And it was, so, for me, again, very proud that I was able to just 3 months blow out, and then really, or maybe 5 months with the February piece, and really just start going and turn it around, you know. So ended up going on this program called 75 Hard. I don't know if you've heard of it. I have heard of that, man. That really gave me the structure. So for me as a human, I need structure and I need guidelines. Yep. If I've got that, I'm fucking sticking
75 Hard, man. There's the second time I've heard about it. I mean, my cousin's massive on it.
Yeah.
Those who are listening, 75 Hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I cannot, for me, from a person that's gone from depression and other suffering from mental health issues, 75 Hard, mate, that changed my life.
Yeah.
I would say if I didn't find 75 Hard, I don't know where I would have been today, to be honest.
What's the guy that runs it? Was it
Andy Frisell?
Oh, Andy Frisell.
Yeah, it really changed my life and gave me that structure. And, and I think, a lot of my friends are going, oh, here he fucking goes again, But, the impact that it had on me was profound. Like, awesome, it really changed my life, So, yeah, any listeners, 75 Hard, it will change your life if you stick to it.
Yep.
So
I guess it's fucking hard. But you got to do something fucking hard.
You got to do it. And I think that's one thing for me as a human as well, is I've always wanted to test myself. Like I've always done these stupid fucking ridiculous challenges and, and 75 Hard was really, I was like, yeah, I need that,
Yeah.
So did that. That really cleaned me up. But then what I found when I stopped drinking was that all these thoughts in my head were becoming a lot worse, around shit, my brother's passed away. Fucking, I don't have a relationship with my mum. My fucking dad, I don't know. Like all these negative, like your childhood starts fucking coming up. So I very early on got onto that and went into, started doing counselling. So for probably the next 6 months, I was doing 3 sessions a week. Cost me a shitload of money.
Yep.
And we unpacked a lot of shit, we unpacked a lot of stuff. And one of the techniques that Donna, my psychologist, gave me at the time is we got a long piece of paper and we timelined my whole life around key events, you know, whether it's good or bad, you know. And then what she did after, she got me to colour in the events in pencil colours, so green for good, brown for bad, and then some other colours. And it was only then when I coloured in this full chart that I went, fuck, because I've always been, no, my life's not been bad. I've got a good life. I've fucking no dramas. When I looked at this chart, I went, fuck, like that's some pretty rough stuff. You know, when you map it all out and you look at all the events, you go, that's pretty fucking rough, man. Yeah. And I think, because for me, again, just back onto that, having that self, I don't even know the word for it, but just telling yourself, it has been rough. Yeah. Like, I don't want to dwell in the emotions, but at the same time, I think a bit of self.
Well, it goes back to that old school thing of shut the fuck up, harden up.
Correct.
You know, push it aside. And in some theory, the past is the past. Yeah. We cannot change anything about it. Correct. At all. And it's just like we've got no control over the future. We only got this present moment right fucking now. And I mean, that's cool, man. I haven't heard, I've done a lot of therapy as well, but I've never heard the colouring in thing, man. Yeah. But to lay it out, and like what you say, because you know you got to have it laid out. It's a physical thing that you really need to sort of
when you look at it, and I've still got it now. Like, you look at it and you're just like, fuck yeah. And I think that comes back to the self-love of, and again, I want to, you know, I think there's people out there that go, oh, I've had a shit life and this has happened and that's happened. But I don't think that's the right way. I think you've got to acknowledge to go, do you know what? It has been shit. Yeah, I've put up with some shit and I've been through some shit and I've caused some shit, but I'm not going to let that define me. You know, I'll let it refine me, but I'm not going to let it define me. You know, and I think for me, my mindset, and I would advise anyone, you know, going through troubles to have that mindset, is that, again, don't let it define you. You know, you've got to process it and you've got to allow yourself to go through the emotions, but don't stick in there for too long. Yeah. You know, because I think if you stick in there for too long, it's where depression comes.
It's cool that you're saying this, man, because so like my coach I've saw for 8 years, she now comes on a podcast, and we do one every month or one every 2 weeks, and it's always on different topics. And so we're doing a relationship, because we thought, let's do a podcast about relationships. Yeah. And soon we realised, well, soon we've gone, fuck, that's a massive topic. Yeah. You know, so we then now doing series of relationship with self, with your partner, with family and friends, and with money too, man. Yeah. And we've only just done the first one, which was the relationship with self. Yeah. And yeah, man, it's like a lot of the stuff that you're talking about is like fucking super important,
mate.
Like,
so important. Yeah. And I think that's where Donna, you know, my psychologist educated me a lot around that, you know, because I'm not a very confident person. The root of me is not someone that's self-confident. You know, I'm very, the little voices inside my head, probably the same as most of us, they're terrible, you know, like, and I think, you know, people tend to get me wrong around, you know, that I'm a confident person. I'm definitely not, you know, but what Donna taught me was have a bit more confidence and self-love, and, you know, and really just accept, you know.
Yeah. Do you feel like, because I'm exactly the same as you, I've always been considered as a confident guy, but sometimes you make up for confidence where you lack in self-love or you know, in those areas. Yeah, I agree. And that's where successful business comes into place. Well, I do believe, because you're making up for,
I agree. No, I agree. So ended up, it's been a long journey, and that journey still goes on. You know, I still have the little voices in my head that go, "You're not good enough," you know, and whatnot. You know, if I have to walk across the street at a traffic light, it's the worst anxiety that I have, because I feel like everyone's looking at me, judging me. Like, it's terrifying. You rarely see me walking across a traffic light. You know, I'll always go down the road and just fucking run across the road, you know, because I can't stand when cars are there looking at you, you know. But, you know, so that's stuff. And I guess just back to the point of how my life's all shaped me, you know, I think the struggles that I've had mentally, it probably didn't set in until probably 4 or 5 years ago, where I thought, shit, this has actually had a big impact on me. You know, I don't feel right, you know. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been doing lots of therapy in way of counselling. Yep. I've read, you know, in the last 3 years, therapy. I've read a shit ton of books. Just
what's your best book, man? Or
I was thinking, are you going to ask me this question? Fuck, that's a good question. Shit, I don't know if I'm going to be able to answer it, man.
Yeah. Well, because I guess it depends on what path you go down to.
Yeah, I think like there's different books for different things that I've learned. I think one of the best books I've read, and it was actually a business book. Actually, it wasn't a self-help book, but it was a book called Traction, and that was it was a fantastic book. But I think maybe one of the personal development books, and I know everyone's on the Goggins train and whatnot, but the first book he wrote, I mean, for me, I was seeing him on all these videos and I was thinking, this guy's fucking irritating me. Yeah. And I read his book and I went, oh shit.
Yeah, it's a good book.
That's a good book, So I think that was a good one. But then I've read a heap of books on, self-confidence and really just trying to, emotional intelligence. I read one recently from Gary Vaynerchuk called 12 and a half, which is a really interesting book. And I actually use that in my day-to-day as a strategy. So what they do is 12 and a half is a book around there's 12 and a half ingredients to a human, and that's through empathy, kindness, candor, all these 12 ingredients. And what I've done in my office is I've wrote, because again, back to my aggressive piece, I've wrote all of these emotions down. And when I'm going into a difficult meeting or a difficult conversation, I look at it and I go, okay, what ammunition am I taking into this? Am I taking gratitude? Am I taking kindness? What am I taking? And I pick 3. Every single meeting I go into, I'll pick 3. Yeah. And it allows me to go into that meeting and just know what emotions I'm going to go in there with. Yeah, cool. And that was a great book. I really enjoyed reading that book.
Because I talk about in life, you need a tool belt of all tools. Yeah, and, correct. If it's money, your friends, your family, but also like your confidence. And the more we sort of learn how to use these tools, man, the better it is. And it's interesting you say that because
look, it works very well, mate. Because I struggle
and being aware of it.
Correct. And I think that's the biggest thing because I go into these meetings and I'm fucking hot off the press, Whereas it allows me to look at it and go, well, hang on, what do I need to take into it? Cool, like what's in what ammunition am I taking?
Yeah, asking yourself what you need.
Correct. And it's worked pretty well for me so far. So 12 and a half is I think it's 12 and a half it's called. So my journey through obviously fitness, for me, when I started my business, neglected my body. So for the last 3 years I've been heavily invested in, again, just fitness, diet, so my nutrition, reading, counseling. And I found that for me mentally, it had a temporary fix. It was a temporary fix for me. I'd go to Ring Fit and punch the boxing bag and I'd feel better, because I'd have all these dark thoughts in my mind around, do I want to be here? What's the purpose? What the fuck's all this around? Like, what are we doing? The big questions. And I didn't want to have that thought process. So, through the last 3 years, I've been to doctors. I've been, first I got diagnosed with ADHD because I'm very erratic. I'm up and down. Started taking medications for ADHD. Didn't like them, so I stopped.
What was that like coming off it?
I only did them for 30 days.
Oh, okay.
I was like, it was 30 days, and I was like, and I was very against medication. So I was like, so what I was doing, I was taking the pills on a Monday and Tuesday. Wednesday I wouldn't take it. Thursday, Friday take it. Saturday, Sunday not take it because I didn't want to become addicted and reliant on them. So ADHD, threw that out the window. Invested a heap of money in this brain scan to understand how my brain works and fucking how I work as a human being to try and get a grasp of these thought processes that I was having. So I feel like for me, I've invested a lot of money in understanding who I am and what makes me tick. And it was
lucky for you to have those resources to do that too. Because there's a lot of people out there just like, one, it's where do I fucking begin? Yeah. And even if you worked all that shit out, it's like, how the fuck am I going to do it?
Yeah, correct.
Isn't it?
But I think even with people that don't have the resources, I think get a book, get a piece of paper, write down your thoughts, because again, journaling is something that I do and it's very powerful, and again, I would encourage people that are going through some mental health challenges or depression or anxiety and ask, if it's anxiety, why do I feel anxious on this? Yeah. And really get down to the bottom of it.
And again, going back, just put your fucking hand up because there's a lot of people out there too, man, that would fucking help you or guide you. They may not have the money or the resources, but fucking just get your hand up, mate. Yeah. And it's sort of like not that I'm religious, but it does say it in the Bible, you ask and you receive,
I agree, and I think, we've got the health system here as well. Go and see a GP, things are that bad,
So what happened after the antidepressants?
The ADHD.
Yeah,
the ADHD. So I came off them and I thought, nah, I've got this. Nah, fucking fitness, diet, I'll keep myself busy. I've got this, and I'll just accept that I'm erratic as fuck. So I just continued. And then this year, 2022 was a bit of an interesting year. So I put a leadership team into my business and I said, guys, I'm fucking out. There's the keys. I can see you later. And I went back to the UK for a couple of months and did some stuff. Long story short, they royally fucked the business. I came back in June. Came back in June to fix the business up, and I did just that. Yeah. But since I got back from the UK in June 2022, I was having a lot of thoughts around, and the business was in a bad position as well. So I think that triggered a lot of it. But I was a lot of thought processes around, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this? Do I want to be here? You see the homeless guy on the street just fucking drinking all day and or just for argument's sake. And I think, sometimes I just wish I could be that guy. You've got all this pressure financially from a business.
All the expectations.
Yeah, all the expectations. You've got people going, my mouth don't fucking work. And you're like, seriously, mate, So there was, and the thought process kept coming up around, do I want to be here? Which scares me, that thought process, because I feel like it's over the last 4 years, it's gradually got worse. So anyway, cut a long story short, I was in a short-term relationship.
What do you mean, do you want to be here? Like, you're talking about, like, in
on
business?
Earth.
On Earth. Okay.
Do I fucking want to be Dale? Do I want to be here?
Yeah.
And it's something I've always battled with, but it's in the last 2-3 years, the thought process has got gradually worse and worse and worse. June this year, I was in a relationship and the relationship was good for the first 3 months. The second 3 months, it really broke down because of my moods. So for me, the erratic piece goes with manic highs and low lows, and I felt that the low lows were getting longer. They were getting longer, and they were they were affecting my relationship. That relationship ultimately ended, unfortunately. But it made me look internally to go, okay, I need to like get some help here, because I don't want to be this person. Like, I don't want to be this person in this relationship. I don't want to be going into my business and people over the years, which they have, saying, oh, well, we never know what mood you're going to be in, And in October last year, I thought, you know what, enough's enough. I'm going to go to the doctors and just see what they think. So went to the GP. The GP, I explained what was going on, and the GP said, yeah, I think it's a mood disorder. I said, okay. And she prescribed me some medications, and I refused the medication because what I said to her is, I said, look, I want to get a professional diagnosis. Like, there's no point in me coming to see a GP and you telling me that I've got depression or anxiety or bipolar or whatever it is. I would like to go and see a psychiatrist. So she referred me to a psychiatrist, and obviously there's not many people that know this, but January I had my appointment with the psychiatrist, and it was a 2-hour meeting, and we went through the whole process of history and what's happened and thought process, and they diagnosed me with bipolar spectrum disorder, which is, do you know what, something I'm proud of. It's something that's part of me. The lows are the lows, the highs are the highs. But ultimately, as part of being diagnosed with bipolar spectrum disorder, they obviously prescribed me medication, which in the past I've not gone well with medication. So very early January, I went and got this prescription, and I thought, okay, am I going to take this?
Yeah.
And I've got a really good friend that has been through depression, and he said, bro, just take the fucking medication. He's a Kiwi guy. Just take the fucking medication and see how you feel. And I did exactly that. And I started taking the medication at the beginning of January. And I can tell you what, man, so since January to today, sure, I felt low and I felt sad. Have I feel depressed? No. I have not since. And again, we're only 4 or 5 weeks in. I haven't felt that depression. I'm still manic, but I've not felt the depression.
Yeah, cool.
And for me, I look at this bipolar spectrum disorder, and the reason why I'm proud of it is because I feel like these manic episodes they've really excelled my career, and without that, I don't think I would have had the business that I've got, and I wouldn't have the energy that I've got to be the person around my friends and my family and the staff that we've got. So I mean, look, I've probably skipped a lot through my mind process, but that's where I'm currently at.
I mean that's fucking awesome, man. I'm sort of still taking that in, to be honest. But but it's credit to yourself, man. We've talked about this time and time and time again. you've put your hand up, man, and you're doing something about it, bro. You know what I mean? And fuck, to be given a prescription for bipolar, well, you know, some pills for the bipolar, then it's one to even go through the process of going, walking through the doors of a GP and putting your hand up and saying, fuck, man, I need to address some issues. Then going to the psychologist and whatnot, but then getting the diagnose and then getting the pills and then having to actually fucking take them, man. That's a fucking big.
Yeah, it was a big journey for me. Like, I mean, you know, we talk about men being proud. I am a proud man. Yeah. You know, like, obviously, I think most men are proud men. But
you can be proud of what you said, bro.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you can be proud of this whole fucking podcast.
Nah, 100%. Like, this is me, right? This is raw. This is who I am. This is my experiences. And I just feel that, you know, my message is that you don't have to suffer through this stuff. You know, like, and my number one priority in life is, and people always ask me, like, what's your purpose? What's important? And it's happiness. Yeah. If I'm not happy, I ain't fucking doing it.
Where does that happiness come from, bro?
Mate, just internal. Yeah, it's just internal happiness, knowing that when I wake up in the morning, I've got stuff to look forward to. I've got a good circle around me. Yeah. And just appreciation for all these little things that you do have in your life, man. I mean, I think being in business, we can relate to it. The answer isn't in that, man. It isn't in the fucking money. It isn't in the fucking penthouse apartments or the drugs or the alcohol or the fucking girls or anything like that, man. It really, and regardless of what you've got in your life, man, you do need to just find some gratitude and putting your feet on the floor every morning after a sleep, or, you know, I even go out the back door and just take a breath of fresh air. And, you know, obviously I've got kids, which help a fucking shitload, but, you know, but they also put a lot of stress on at times as well. But going to the gym too, man, like, mate, the gym's been a big one for me, you know, and I think just back onto that happiness thing, and this is something that's resonated with me heavily. And I say it to some of my friends and even people I meet sometimes that are struggling is, you know, I heard this a couple of years ago and it fucking stuck with me heavily. It went, you know, how old are you, Dave? I'm
41.
41. So statistically speaking, in 42 years, you're going to be fucking dead. Yeah. You're gone, mate. Like, statistically speaking, you're fucking gone. Yeah. And, mate, you've got to live your life, right? And I don't mean live your life and be reckless and go and spend money and go on benders and fucking take drugs, but I mean, you've got to be happy. Yeah. Whatever we're doing, we have to be happy with what we're doing, you know, and whatever that happiness means to anyone, it doesn't matter. Like, my happiness and your happiness is somewhat different, but
that's why I've just made a stand with myself in terms of a relationship. So I'm like well and truly over 2 years ago had the breakup. So I've been single this whole time, and I've just had it in me of like, man, you got to find your happiness and find you back, and, you know, look at yourself in the mirror with pride. Before you can go and entertain another. And even not even in a relationship, just finding because there's all these distractions that people do put in their lives, man. If it's in relationships or drugs, alcohol, we talked about, you know, obviously work and whatnot, and then, you know, it's very important to sit in that silence and to find and fall in love with yourself again. And when you do start falling in love with yourself again, because it's completely fucking okay to be in love with yourself. In fact, 100%. It's a must. Yeah. And when you start doing that, then you actually start having better conversations. You start attracting more better things to your life. And you've got a better, I guess, you've got a better understanding and you're visual to the things that you need to have in your life, I guess. Like, you've got a better outlook, better vision, I guess.
No, I agree. You've got to be comfortable with one, right? Like, you've got to, you know, and I think, you know, to testify to that, even since I've been taking these medications, like, I'm looking at my life and I'm going, well, that's kind of fallen into place, and that person's come into my life, and that's kind of good. And I feel like all these dots are connecting, and I think once you become at peace with who you are, and you go, do you know what? I'm a good guy. Yeah. You know, I've got good intentions. And letting
go of that ego, man. That ego wants to tell you, don't fucking do it, man. Like,
evil, man. Evil. Yeah. But yeah, look, that's my that's my story in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff within that. That I probably haven't covered, but I mean, for me, mate, it's been a rough journey. It's been a journey that I can look back on and go, I'm proud of. Yeah. No doubt there's going to be struggles,
and it's only just begun too, bro. You know, like fuck it, like you said, I mean, you're younger than me, but there's still more to come.
There's still lots more to come, mate. There's, you know, I mean, I'm motivated and I'm you know, I'm feeling in a really happy place, and
awesome.
Not happy as in fucking the pills are taken out, because I still feel the same person on these pills, and this is, I guess, I guess this is a big thing that people need to understand as well. There's this big stereotype of, oh, well, if you take pills, you're going to be zombified and you're going to be this and you're going to be that.
Yep.
I'm taking these medications and I feel just how I did without them. But I feel more motivated and I feel more structured, you know. And so I feel like if you are struggling with any mental health problem or any listeners struggling with mental health problems, go and see a GP. Like there's nothing to be ashamed of.
And especially if you're at that stage of fucking rock bottom, man. Well, then if you're at rock bottom, well, then just do the one fucking last thing on the fucking list, and that's just take some medication, see where you're at, man. Correct. Because there's people around you that love you. There's a life ahead of you. Yeah. There's so many more fucking great things to come. And it's just this present moment of fucking the whole world feels like it's on top of you. Yeah. Just quickly on that, I've never taken any sort of medication. And I've been another one of those guys that just like, nah, do it the fucking hard way, man. You know, like I had an ice bath this morning. I've gone to the gym. I try and eat well and keep myself, you know, active in that way. Meditate. Yeah. But I've also done, have you heard of ayahuasca? No. Okay. Ayahuasca.
Tell me.
Fuck. Look, I've got to be careful about what I say here, man, because it's not for everyone. Okay. But it's what we call medicine, right? Okay. And ayahuasca is like a traditional. It's from the Amazon. Yep. And it's hundreds of thousands of years old, man. They've been using it traditionally, you know, in their culture and whatnot. And basically, what it is, it's a hallucinogenic drug. But taken with the right people, there's shamans out there that hold ceremonies. Okay. And so you've got to get out of the whole LSD fucking hippie drug thing. Yep. You're going down there for a reason. So you take it really serious. One, you have a meeting with these people and they try and work out where you're at and everything. So you have the meeting. Then being successful, which 9 times out of 10 you are, you do a diet for 2 weeks. Okay. And that's it's a whole big diet that, you know, and they lay it out for you. But basically the last 3 days leading up to it, you're sort of more or less fasting. It's just veggies. There's no salt or pepper or coffee or even just no sexual interaction or anything like that. Yeah. No, obviously no alcohol or drugs and things. And then you go to this place and it's all set out. For me, I've done it twice. And then you're in a room with about 15 other people. Everything's quiet because it's all about peace. Yeah. And also part of the 2 weeks, it's also just getting your intentions. What do you want out of it? You know, because it's the intentions, like why are you here and things like that. So if it's I want to be more creative, fantastic for fucking trauma, bro. Yeah, okay. Fantastic, man. And they say it's like doing 10 years of therapy in one night. And I can put my hand up both times has been exactly that. It's been the best thing I've ever done. And basically you take this medicine, you're in a circle and you stay to yourself and you just go on this journey, man. And it's
ayahuasca.
I highly recommend it. It's obviously you're not allowed to do it. So you've got to be introduced to the right people.
Just on that, so just back to the medication stuff, is there a reason why you haven't? Like, I'm not sure if there's anything actually wrong with you in that respect. Yeah. But like, is there a reason that you've never gone down that?
Yeah. Well, like I didn't even get vaccinated, so I'm very much. Okay. So like, and it's not that I'm an anti-vaxxer. Yeah. Well, I'm not anti-medication too, man. Like, fuck, I wouldn't judge you at all. If anything, I'd shake your hand and go, I fucking understand, bro. Yeah. And that's wicked. Yeah. I guess I do. I'm very natural though in the way of like, I do think we have the tools naturally to overcome things. Yeah. And I sort of trust in that, you know.
Yeah, see, I agree to so part of my journey, I think, and again, my opinion only, I feel that, you know, I've done, you know, you can do a lot of work with counselling. You can fix your diet, you can fix your exercise, you can be reading good books and surrounding yourself with good people. But I also think that there's also and look, with all the terminology, if there's a chemical imbalance, there's a chemical imbalance, sure, you know.
Exactly.
I do truly believe that based on my current experiences. I feel that, and that's why I went to the meds, right, is I did all of this. I fixed probably 90% of what was going on. Yeah. But there was still like 10% where I felt depressed.
Yeah. Hey, man, I've some days with me where I'm just like, what more do I have to fucking do to feel good, man? Yeah. You know, I'm doing the ice baths, I'm fucking meditating, I'm this and that. And because it really is, it's a fucking struggle. And I'm thinking, does any normal person have to put all this fucking effort in to feel good? But I think
that's a really good question.
Yeah.
Is what's normal?
Well, that's right. Exactly,
I think it's
man.
a fucking good question.
And I think fucking life's hard, mate. Let's face it. And this is the other thing. Life is easy if you don't fucking challenge yourself. So you also got to have a look at what challenges you're going through in life. Like you're doing the podcast, you've been a father, you're working, you're fucking, you know, you got a lot of shit going on, you know, and also fuck you're out on the drink till fucking 3 a.m. the other day, man. Like fuck, let's think about that. That's probably it fucking right now.
That's it right there.
You know, so there's all these things that are going on, and it's a little bit like your chart that you've done with your therapist, and it's like, write it down. Yeah. Like just fucking take 1 hour to write down everything that's going on in your life right now today, and you'll be fucking surprised on what's going on. Correct. And I think that the more you are challenged, man, the better. Well, it is for me. Like I need that challenge to keep going, you know. And even with podcasting, and I even done like a professional photo shoot last week. And man, I was
it a fully clothed one?
Yeah.
Okay, fully clothed one.
She tried to get me to take the shirt off. No. And but she's going to be listening to this. Go, you fucking idiot.
I fucking didn't.
And then but that was nervous for me, man. And I was like more than even doing a podcast. And I don't even know where I'm going with that now, but
the photo shoot.
It was just the challenge of it, and it's sort of like, okay, well, where are you trying to be and visualizing to be, and what do you have to go through to what doors do you have to walk through to get to this where you want to be? And doing a photo shoot's one of them. Being in front of the mic and the camera and things like that's another one. And you know, you start learning how to change all those sorts of things. But ayahuasca. Podcasting come from ayahuasca, and it more or less showed me why I'm here on Earth. And
I'll do some research on ayahuasca.
Yeah, dealt with my mum on there, man. Dealt with a lot of you know, my relationship with females, with it, heaps of stuff, man. And what it does, it basically just breaks down life, like the way we see it, or the way we've been programmed to see life, and it just breaks all that down and just helps you resolve the things that are going on, particularly the things that you went
the trauma stuff.
Yeah. Ayahuasca, man. I'll do it with you.
I'll be sure.
And you know what? Even look, it scares the fuck out of me because I'm not one to take a hallucinating drug ever.
Likewise.
Yeah.
Likewise.
Other stuff, no. Yeah, but and then so I was freaking the fuck out, man, the whole way into it. And again, it was one of those moments where I was sitting in the circle and I was just saying, Dave, this is, you know, fucking, it's been that fucking hard for yourself. Even, let's just say this all completely goes fucking wrong and you die tonight. At least you'd try and do something to help yourself. And it was all in the name of therapy, bro. It was
good on
nothing
you,
more, man.
Yeah.
And I believe in those dark times, you need to start going through some of those doors you don't want to do. Fucking open them up, man.
Yeah, you have to. Yeah. Otherwise, like you say, that's depression comes in, suicide creeps in. And before you know it, it's destruction. Yeah. You know?
Yeah. Cool. Oh, well, let's leave it on there, bro.
Let's leave it there. No, I appreciate you coming on, man.
Yeah. Look, man, I just want to say this, and to I can speak on behalf of everyone who's going to watch this podcast, bro. Thanks, fucking shitload for sharing your story today. I know it wouldn't have been easy, man. Yeah. But it's happened for a reason.
Yeah, no, of course, mate. Look, it's been challenging to come onto this, and as we said at first, obviously, you know, I hope that I've come across right, and then people don't think I'm an absolute fucking nutbag. Yeah. Look, it's a part of my journey, right? It's professional development, personal development.
Every podcast I do, I always say that was the best podcast ever, mate. So you
better than Scotty Cummins.
Just shot myself in the foot there, mate. Nah, thanks heaps, mate. Thanks, and we'll, I'm sure we'll do this again.
For sure, mate. All right, Sounds good.
See you, mate.